Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads, welcome to another episode of the Positive Head Podcast. I have a little bit of a guest, a lot of bit of a guest. I know you guys, after a while, get tired of just hearing my voice on the daily shows. So I begged and pleaded for Erica Middlemiss to please bless us with her presence.
It took a lot of begging today. A
lot of begging. It did. But Erica, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to be here.
Yeah. So I let Erica decide what we should talk about today. She's the boss. I just work here.
Yeah,
and
just for today.
and so you had a topic that you've wanted to talk about for some time. Basically empaths, empathy, that sort of thing, which is obviously a great topic of conversation. We even had a question that sort of relates to the topic. So, let's just dive right in because we've got quite a bit. We got a couple clips we're going to share. And we'll start, though, first with this question from Brittany on the Facebook group, Positive Heads. By the way, if you're not on the Positive Heads Facebook group, how dare you? Get on there. Get on there. It's an ever-growing group of soul family, and lots of great questions have been coming in lately, and a lot of friendships formed, a lot of support, all those things. So, this came from Brittany, and Brittany said, "Hello, friends. Firstly, I hope this day finds you well. I have a question regarding something I just experienced. I work with children, so temper tantrums are inevitable, but today there was a child in the vicinity who was losing her mind. Her mother remained calm the entire time, but also did not remove the child from the public setting, and thus forced us all to endure the screaming and throwing of merchandise for about 20 minutes. She eventually had to leave without accomplishing what she came for. I could hear her child screaming all the way down the block. I'm not here to discuss the way the mother handled the situation and do not claim to know what the child was going through or if they have emotional challenges. What concerns me is that I noticed immediately that my own energy had changed. I felt anxious and sick, sort of exhausted or off kilter. What I'm wondering is, how do you recenter or shake off that energy when you experience something like this? I'm sure we all encounter people, children and adults alike, who emit energies and vibrations which are disturbing to our own tranquility or the environment around us. What do you do when you experience something like this? Thanks in advance for taking the time to respond. If you do, so grateful to have a place where I can ask these types of questions." So, Erica, what this makes me think of instantly is right before we started, Erica knows me well enough to know I typically do a little meditation, grounding meditation, and to calm my energy. And so right before we were about to turn on the mic here a moment ago, Erica says, "Well, Brandon, aren't you going to do your meditation?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And, I've had kind of a frazzly morning. And so what a great sort of synchronicity there, because instantly what comes to mind is when I do, and what I do before I start recording each episode, typically, and for some reason I forgot today, probably because I had a co-host and it was like a little out of the ordinary, but I typically take a moment and do a chakra meditation, opening my chakras and grounding my energy and things like that. And instantly I feel better when I do that. And it's literally takes like 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, depending on how long I go. So that's one thing that jumps out because I just dealt with it. Thanks to Erica. Erica, what do you think about this?
Well, yeah, grounding is one of the best ways to get in your own center, because then you can realize what is yours and what is not yours. Because, it's hard when you take on other people's energies like this. And I think she did one of the best things you can do is realizing I don't know what's going on here. I'm sure everyone's doing the best that they can. But realizing that's not mine, and then showing that situation some love, right. Knowing that everything is love. It's coming from a place of love, remembering it, trying to see the love in it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the best you can do. And when you do that, when you see the love, when you ground yourself, when you realize it's not yours, it kind of just falls away.
Right.
It's all energy.
Right.
Intention.
Right. Yeah, it makes me think of The Power of Now and Eckhart Tolle's teachings a little bit, where he talks about when the pain body is activated, right, and that ego self is instantly triggered. We all can have those moments where all of a sudden you've seen it either in yourself or other people, where all of a sudden out of nowhere it's like a light switch, like, whoa, what just happened with that person? Like, did the devil just manifest through this person sitting across from me? Like, where's the person from 60 seconds ago? Right? And that's the pain body being activated, and other people can certainly trigger it. Other people, especially when you're really sensitive to other people's energies. I think of my brother, very empathic, my son, very empathic. And so if they're around other people whose energy is, my brother has a particular hard time with other people's energies and how to deal with it and how it makes him feel. And so being aware is the first step, just like the pain body, like Eckhart Tolle teaches, like noticing, oh, hold on, this is coming from somewhere else. What is this that just took me over? And when we're not aware of sort of what's happening, then it becomes our own, right? That bringing awareness to it instantly creates separation between you and it.
Yeah. I've been an empath for, as long as I can remember. And it's taken a long time for me to learn how to be out in a crowd without feeling everyone's emotion, and these are the things that help. Yeah. And it does take a little practice.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's probably the best, very quick response we can give is creating that separation between you and it, being aware that it's not yours, taking a moment, do some deep breathing exercises, do some things. Actually, we're the forthcoming interview episode here in a couple of days is all about breathing techniques and so forth. Very important, very powerful way to deal with stressful situations and energy and grounding energy. Of course, we're going to take this conversation or this topic a little bit further since, it sort of leads down the path of talking about empathy. What is the difference, of course, too, when you're dealing with someone? Maybe it's not a kid that you don't know in this case, but a friend, right? That gets even harder. Someone you're close to, your partner, your parent, your sibling, your friend who is having a difficult time. It takes on a whole new level of, struggle or energetic exchange, right? When you're close to someone, you're going to feel it. And even more. And you certainly, and it's not like they're going to all of a sudden be taken out of the building and you're never going to see them again. A lot of times they're coming to you and sort of pouring this stuff onto you and asking your thoughts and asking you to help with it and looking for you to sort of go through it with them. And this leads to the topic of, what's the difference between empathy and sympathy? And we have some great clips here, actually, from Brené Brown that talk about this, both fairly short clips. One of them was actually also posted in the Facebook group by Kwame, and great little clip by Brené Brown on empathy versus sympathy. Let's take a listen.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So yeah, I think this really sums it up well. She says, empathy fuels connection. Sympathy causes disconnection. It's kind of funny how she's talking about, kind of climbing down. And if you watch this video that, this clip was taken from, there was some animation with it, and it's really great. It shows, someone climbing down a ladder into a hole with someone is sort of the empathy, feeling with people, whereas sympathy, it's someone looking down the hole and saying, oh, I want a sandwich. The worst things that we can do is...
It's pretty rough down there. Don't want to go down there.
Yeah, it's pretty rough down there. Well, and, I love how she says, and this is something to be so aware of. I've done this. I've been guilty of this many times. Sort of, well, at least, silver lining things, right? Doesn't really help. And if you think about it, it creates more isolation, right? Creates more disconnection. And she talked about Teresa Wiseman's 4 qualities of empathy: perspective taking, staying out of judgment, recognizing emotions in others and communicating that. What makes something better is connection. And I think that is such an important thing. And then, of course, once again, how do we make that connection, but also know what's ours versus theirs, and not take it on in such a way that it devastates us as well. So this is really the delicate balance. Wouldn't you agree, Erica?
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things too is staying out of judgment. Not judging, oh, that's a negative emotion.
Yeah. You should be being positive.
Love. Right. Yes. Right. No. There's no one better than you, and there's no one less than you, right? There's no one energetically superior or, less than, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. So I think this video does a really great job of sort of explaining the difference and giving us that perspective. But then sort of the next piece to it that Brené Brown talks about in another clip is, how do you create the boundaries, right? How do you embody empathy, but also create boundaries, and how do you protect yourself in a way that doesn't, just wreck your world too, right? So, here's another clip, another relatively short clip, a little longer than the last one, but this is Brené Brown on boundaries, compassion, and empathy. Take a listen.
One of the most shocking findings of my work was the idea that the most compassionate people I have interviewed over the last 13 years were also the absolutely most boundaried. Because
most boundaried.
So I'll give you a great definition of the definition of boundary that I use in the book. Boundary is simply what's okay and what's not okay. What I think we do is we don't set boundaries. We let people do things that are not okay or get away with behaviors that are not okay. Then we're just resentful and hateful. Me, I'd rather be loving and generous and very straightforward with what's okay and what's not okay. And I did not, that I learned from the research. I was the exact opposite. I assumed for the first 35 years of my life that people were sucking on purpose just to piss me off. That's what I assumed. Yeah, right. Whether it was someone who worked for me or it was family member who was constantly I was always critical and judgy. And I was like, why are they choosing these things? Why are they making their choices? They should know better. And then when this thing came up from my therapist, what if people are doing the best they can? I thought, my husband had the most beautiful answer to that question. He said, I'll never know whether people are doing the best they can or not. But when I assume people are, it makes my life better. So now I think I am not as sweet as I used to be, but I'm far more loving.
It's not just some technique so that you can do that. That's really a way of being to nurture that soil of wholeheartedness.
Yeah. Generosity, to assume the best about people, is almost an inherently selfish act, because the life you change first is your own.
You love yourself.
Yeah. And so my question is big, B-I-G. Mm-hmm. What boundaries need to be in place for me to stay in my integrity and make the most generous assumptions about you? But generosity can't exist without boundaries, and we are not comfortable setting boundaries because we care more about what people will think, and we don't want to disappoint anyone. We want everyone to like us, and boundaries are not easy. But I think they're the key to self-love, and I think they're the key to treating others with loving kindness. Sustaining. Nothing is sustainable without boundaries. I think compassion and empathy are different things, and again, I'm relying on my data for this. I think compassion is a deeply held belief that we're inextricably connected to each other by something rooted in love and goodness. I call that God. Not everybody calls that God. My dad would call it fishing. Fishing?
Is it fishing?
No, there's no G in fishing.
Okay.
But I think compassion is a deeply held belief. I think empathy is the skill set to bring compassion alive. So empathy is something we can teach. I mean, it's something we've taught our kids since they were very little. It's about how to communicate that deep love for people in a way so that people don't know they're not alone. I think there's a lot of new interesting information out there about empathy not being a good thing, about that, there's an argument that says, if Travis is in struggle and I practice empathy with you, I'm taking on your darkness, and it leads to burnout, and but empathy is not feeling for somebody. It's feeling with them. It's touching a place in me that knows where you've been, so I can look at you and say, me too, brother. You're not alone in this. And I find empathy to be infinite. I think it gives back tenfold what you put out.
It's sustaining. If you've done the work and you have your boundaries, mm-hmm. I mean, you could tread that water forever and never get tired.
Okay, so empathy. I'm quoting Travis here. Empathy. If you've done your work and set your boundaries, you can tread that water forever. Amen. It's not finite. And it keeps giving back to us. And so this idea that, but here we go back to where we started this conversation. Empathy minus boundaries is not empathy. Compassion minus boundaries is not genuine. Vulnerability without boundaries is not vulnerability. So you see that there's a huge riff here, which is boundaries are freaking important.
Right.
And they're not fake walls. They're not separation. Boundaries are not division. They're respect. Here's what's okay for me and here's what's not.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a minute to tell you about the exclusive Dream Builder live virtual event from January 27th to 29th. If all it took was 3 short days to turn your life around, would you feel and have the courage to do so? If so, then you won't want to miss best-selling author Mary Morrissey and her team of all-stars who will show you how to break all the rules, feel more confident, and set yourself up for enormous abundance. You'll discover how to build a new, supremely confident you in 3 short days. Super powerful beyond what you dreamed possible. Learn how to rewire your subconscious mind with tools of spiritual manifestation, raising your vibration so powerfully that life rearranges itself to help your dreams come true. Plus, you'll discover the #1 secret to achieving the fabulous new life you and everyone deserves, so you can enjoy more happiness, more wealth, more joy in every area of your life. Go to bti.com/positive and register for your free tickets with a reimbursable deposit today.
Yeah, Brandon, I love Brené Brown with this talk. The most compassionate people have the most boundaries. Absolutely. When we're able to say, this is okay for me and this not, but I can still love you and see the love here. That's compassion. Knowing
Right.
there's a connectedness between all things,
Right.
And like I said before, assuming that people are doing the best that they can, like she said, that's an inherently selfish act, right?
Right,
you change
right.
your own life like this. It's like you're always saying,
There are no selfless acts.
Right. So, what boundaries need to be in place for me to stay in my integrity and make the most generous assumptions that I can? Beautiful.
Right.
Yeah. So, and
yeah,
then
she breaks it down well.
yes. And to stay in that loving kindness, and love really for me is the best and biggest and greatest protection that there is. It's really the only protection. There was a quote in the Gospel of Philip that I heard William Henry talk about in one of his Gaia episodes. And it says, the powers do not see those who are clothed in the perfect light, and consequently are not able to detain them. One will clothe himself in this light sacramentally in union. Not only will they be unable to detain the perfect man, but they will not be able to see him. For if they see him, they will detain him. There is no other way for a person to acquire this quality except by putting on the perfect light, and he too becoming the perfect light. And what does that mean? Being the light, finding that light within yourself, within all your other selves. Right?
Right. Yeah. What, and of course, once again, that's something that comes up a lot is how do I protect myself? And, as always, love is the answer, whatever the question. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, it is a dance though. I mean, finding this balance between self-preservation and, also being empathic, certainly a delicate dance.
It is a delicate dance. Again, coming back to this love this is a quote from the Law of One. There is no protection greater than love.
Right.
And another one that I really like that I found is we see protection being simple. Give thanksgiving for each moment. See the self and the other self as creator. Open the heart. Always know the light and praise it. This is all the protection necessary.
Yeah,
so true.
I think of Bashar talking about this and being protected from negative energies, right? And it's like if you're not giving a lot of power to negative energy, it can't. And this sort of goes into another level of the conversation, right? When you're dealing with darkness or darkness coming at you. But, I love it because there's so much, it's so easy to get lost in like fear, especially I can imagine as people who are, when we're all empathic to different degrees, right? But people who are super sensitive, like it's got to be very easy to get fearful. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go get on the subway and I'm going to just be devastated by the time I arrive where I'm at. And heaven forbid, I bump up against someone who's really negative or malicious or any of those things. So, doing grounding exercise, breathing exercises, knowing that nothing can really harm you unless you give it the power. If you step out and say, I am protected, of course, there's different meditations of embodying yourself and light and things like that. And whatever it takes, as Bashar would say, whatever permission slip you need to kind of create the protection that you need so that you don't, one thing's for sure, you don't want to make decisions that lead to you feeling cut off and isolated and fearful and scared to interact in the world, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think, that building of the wall of light is it's a nice tool to start with, but we have to be careful not to create separation. That's not empathy,
Right. Yep.
And again, that's saying like, well, my energy is better than your energy, so I'm going to need to separate that.
Right, right.
So it's more about, I am love, you are love, this moment is love, even if it doesn't look like it to our conscious mind. And we're always protected. I mean, we have to trust that we're in good hands. We're always in good hands. No harm can come to us unless we allow it, right? So
right, exactly. Yeah, that makes me think of Eben Alexander, the interview I did with him, where his experience having, of course, his profound experience on the other side when he had a near-death experience, and interacting with this being, and her sort of emphatically saying, "You are always okay. You are always protected." And if you can be operating with whatever you're doing from that premise, it obviously creates a level of confidence that you don't have otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, I know that my guides are always with me. My higher self is always there protecting me. Some sort of miraculous thing will happen if any harm is going to come my way. It happens all the time. I mean, I have plenty of stories where this car was about to slam into me and all of a sudden it's like a wall went up and it doesn't hit me, So, everything happens when it's supposed to and we're always protected. Yeah.
Right. Well, man, that goes really quick. It's amazing how fast the time goes when I have someone to talk to other than myself.
Like a heartbeat.
No, it's so fast. But you did, as always, I like to give the DJ controls over to whoever's co-hosting. And you had a song that I had to chuckle that I hadn't heard in a really long time. It reminds me of Sunday school, like vacation Bible school when I was like 8 years old, this song. But it's
Speaking
very sweet and very innocent. Yeah, exactly. So this is, who is the artist here?
So the artist, his name is Eddie Elliott, and he is not very well known. He's actually a friend of mine. And I saw him play at a coffee shop years ago, bought the CD because I absolutely fell in love, and you guys will see why in a second. The song is called This Little Light of Mine.
And with that being said, may you all shine on, lovely listeners. Until next time, journey well. Erica, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Love you all.
Bye.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All through the house, I'm gonna let it shine. All through the house, I'm gonna let it shine. All through the house, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Out in the dark, I'm gonna let it shine. Out in the dark, I'm gonna let it shine. Out in the dark, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine.